One world currency.
A new world order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is May 14th, 2013. This is another live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. Quick, short first segment here, as you all are accustomed to. When we come back from the quick break, on the other side of this quick segment, I'm going to bring up my guest for this evening. He is definitely penciled in for at least 1 hour, and who knows, he might even be able to stay for an extra half hour. We don't know. We will find out. I do have that power to coax guests into staying longer than they're originally penned in for anyway. But I hope I do have extra time, because tonight's guest is someone that I am pleased to be bringing to the airwaves for you all. Somebody who I've mentioned on air before. I played audio of his arrest and his illegal search, in his own words, as you heard in the audio. Quote, "Now I'm being illegally searched," end quote. That's right, my good friend, Alex. And on the other side of the break, I'm going to bring him up, and we're going to pick his brain about everything hacking, Hack Miami. What is Hack Miami? They're having a hacker conference this weekend down here in Miami. Big event. At least a couple hundred people from all over the world showing up, like big-time, big-name hackers coming in from all over the world for this conference. So it's pretty exciting. We're going to be getting into a bunch of different things. I want to pick his brain about just a slew of different things, including I want to get into, and we discussed this, and I'll pick his brain a little bit about this, but perhaps in the future putting together some how-to videos for people in the alternative media community. And some of those how-to videos might be the basics of maybe how to put a basic computer together and things like that, in order to empower everybody, to show people that this kind of stuff can be done by one person. I mean, there's three of us that are behind Federal Jack, between the running from everything from running the website all the way to doing the IT stuff. There's only three of us that do a job of a crew of 15. So we're going to try to impart some of that knowledge out to the public as well, and who knows where else we'll go. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a quick, short minute. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Nice long segment, and I want to get right into it just in case we are limited to only 1 hour tonight. My guest tonight is my good friend and one of the other individuals behind making FederalJack.com tick. My good friend Alex. Alex, welcome to the broadcast, brother.
Hey, what's up, Popeye? Thanks for having me on.
I want to pick your brain about a ton of things. I know it's hard to get you on the air. It's damn near impossible because you never have time because you are a very, very busy individual. And by the way, I know the listeners want to give you a big thank you for protecting Federal Jack. You and James have done a wonderful job over the years of protecting FederalJack.com from the multiple attacks that we get. So I want to give you a big shout out and a thank you. I want to pick your brain right off the bat. I want to jump into it for time purposes. What's Hack Miami? I know what it is, but my listeners have heard me mention it, and I just say it's a group of hackers that get together here in Miami, and I really don't do the organization any justice. I know you are the president and one of the founders of it. So take a few minutes, explain what Hack Miami is, how people in the local South Florida community area can get involved in it if they're hackers or whatever, and what's coming up with this conference this weekend that you guys are holding.
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, it started off as an informal gathering of hackers over at some of the local universities, and then it evolved into basically a formalized corporation that offers an array of security services, everything from vulnerability analysis to penetration testing to malware forensic analysis to basically an assortment of information security services. And in addition to that, we still maintain bi-monthly meetings that we have every 2 weeks down here in South Florida. And we gather and we discuss the latest topics in hacking and the latest tools and methods that are being used. And up in May, we got the actual conference coming up, where it's our first annual conference, and we just put out a call for papers to see who was interested in coming out, and we had a really great response from people from all over the world who are going to be coming out to present. And we're anticipating a good head count, and it's going to be right on Miami Beach, so it's going to be nice and fun for everyone. There's going to be about 30 speakers total. You're even speaking on a track about false flag hack attacks. And there's also going to be events going on in the evening. There's a concert going on at Tobacco Road, which is the oldest bar in Miami. And we at the Hack Miami sponsored that concert. And it's going to be quite a time. And we've got people coming from all over the world for it.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be able to actually be a part of it myself. I'm happy that I was invited to speak. And yeah, I will be, just for the listeners, I know I've said this before, but I don't know if I've actually advertised it as much as I should have. But yeah, I will be speaking at the conference, or at least moderating a discussion about false flag hack attacks. And I would like to pick some of the people's brains that will be there about the guests. I want to pick some of their brains about what they think about false flag hack attacks, if they even believe in that type of thing. If they do, who do they think is behind it? Why? So I'm just excited that I was able to, even be picked as a moderator. I want to thank you guys because for me as a host, it's and as a researcher. I want to get in, I would love to get into a room filled with hackers and just be able to pick their brains and ask them a million questions, I'm sure by the time I'm done with you guys at the end of the weekend, you're going to want to strangle me because I've asked you about a bazillion things, but I'm going to be doing interviews as much as I can. I want to get into the mindset of the hacking community more, and I want to help. What I'm trying to do is bridge the gap between the average everyday person that doesn't know anything about computers and the hackers, because you guys are all the same. I mean, everybody. I think the movies have, and of course the mainstream media have made hackers out to be some sort of like miscreant that hides in a basement somewhere with a computer laughing. You know what I mean? And then you guys are everyday people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, essentially this conference is kind of just showcasing what's kind of emerged in the last few years is the underground light hack community. So everyone's definitely can be considered hackers in that they like to reverse engineering. They like to look at things from outside the box, but it definitely doesn't mean there's any criminality behind it at all. It's just about looking at things from outside the box.
Now, at the conference, like what are the selling points? If I didn't know anything about the conference, like say I said to you, okay, you're having a hacker conference. What's the big deal? What are the big things going on? Because I know you guys are getting into a few things. And I know you're even having a ham radio guy come out and give classes to get certified as a ham radio operator.
Yep, we got all sorts of the different type of events. Just as events going on, we've got a Bitcoin development hackathon where we're going to have people get together and try to write software using the Bitcoin API. We got to have a ham radio village where ham radio enthusiasts are going to get together and showcase their gear, and they're going to give a licensing test and do that. And we're also going to have a robotics village where people are going to be showing off their different types of robotics experiments. Work with Arduinos and that type of engineering. We're also going to have hacking tournaments where we got the command and control CTF, where basically we put together a simulation of what the actual what the actual threat landscape looks like, what the actual internet looks like from the perspective of an attacker, and we simulate as much real life stuff as possible. And there's going to be a hacking tournament where people are going to compete for prizes, and we got some pretty nice prizes lined up for that as well. And in terms of talks, we got talks about social engineering attacks, wireless hacking attacks, voice over IP hacking. Some of our keynote talks are going to be on Saturday. We got Dave Marcus, who's head of the threat intelligence research for the McAfee Federal Threat Labs, and then on Sunday we got Christopher Ellison, who's going to be talking about malware automation, and going to be some pretty cool stuff showcasing some of the latest threats out there in regards to computer viruses.
Do you expect the normal Fed trolls to be, trolling about, paying attention, keeping an eye on things?
Well, federal law enforcement's welcome to come out as long as they buy a ticket. There's a lot to learn, and the event's open to everyone.
So you hear that, FBI, NSA, CIA, whatever other three-letter acronym agencies that we don't even know about. As long as you guys buy a ticket at the door,
we fill up.
Right, and make sure you get it. Make sure you get it early because the conference is. I would say it's pretty popular. I mean, I know you guys have a pretty decent turnout.
Yeah, the conference is this weekend, and the last few days we've seen an uptick in sales because people were just standard people wait until the last minute to do things like as humans do, and just as I would. And the last few days we've had a real big flood of tickets coming in, and we probably are eventually going to have to cap the sales if they keep coming in at this rate. So it is recommended that if people are going to come out, they get their tickets early.
The ham radio guy, I know I'm going to end up taking that course myself. How much is it for the people coming down? I remember you told me it was like $15 or $20, right? It's really cheap. The guy's doing it for.
Yeah. In addition to the regular conference admission, which is $125 for the whole weekend, and actually, if you guys use the listeners to the show, if they use the code 25 off, it'll only be $100 for the weekend. On Google checkout, the ham radio licensing exam, I'm not sure the exact price, but it's somewhere in the range of $15 to $20, and that's just what goes to the licensing board or whomever runs that. And yeah, by the end of the test, you're a certified ham radio operator, and you can broadcast on the airwaves.
That is awesome. I know I'm taking the class, and it's not that long. It's not that long of a period of time for the class, and I don't think it's that expensive compared to other conventions. You and I have had this conversation, off air. Compared to other conventions, even if it was $20, even if it was $30, that's still cheaper than what you'd see at most places. I've seen, you've talked to me, you've seen it over $100 just to take the certification class.
Yeah, it's definitely a real good rate, and the real cool part is that the dude who's giving the test is also going to be giving a presentation on ham radio as well. So you're going to not just learn how to pass the test, but you're going to really learn the guts of ham radio.
Awesome. I'm really interested. I want to see. I'm really interested to see just to learn the ins and the outs, get certified in that. But then I want to pick these guys' brains about more stuff, like, wireless internet. Like, is there a way
one of the first articles that Hack Miami had published in 2600 magazine was entitled Post-Apocalyptic Communications. It was essentially a way to broadcast TCP/IP over shortwave radio. So in the event of stuff going down, people are still able to communicate using the internet protocol over the airwaves.
You can bet your bippy, listeners, that I will, even if there was an apocalyptic type event, I would get DTRH back on the airwaves ASAP, hence why I am putting myself through these different courses and why I teach myself all this different stuff. You can ask Alex, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't know anything when I met him, and I took over Federal Jack about 6 years ago now, 5-6 years ago. I didn't know really much about computers more than you go to the store and buy a laptop and press the power button. Okay, that's what I knew about computers. I understood old BASIC and stuff like that, but I didn't understand anything of today's modern technology. And in a very short period of time, I taught myself. If I didn't know, I was willing to ask Alex and the other guys questions. I go on YouTube and stuff. I teach myself a lot of this stuff. And I got to tell you what, it's pretty empowering to be able to look at what I can do now. Photoshop, video editing, broadcasting. I can tear a computer apart and put one back together now, physically. And whatever I don't know, I could always ask my friends for questions here or there. This is all stuff that a couple years ago I might have been like, well, I don't know if I want to touch a computer like that. I'll admit, I was one of these people that was like, I don't know if I want to put my hands on that. I'll probably break it. I'll probably screw it up. You're not going to screw it up.
You learn by doing.
Exactly. That's why I want to go take the ham radio course. I mean, for that and other reasons too, but it's good to know this type of stuff. And you and I were talking off air. We have about 2 minutes before the break comes up, but you and I were talking off air about doing like how-to videos and stuff, which or how-to presentations in the future, which I want to get into, because I think it would be good just to do a quick basic overview of how to put a computer together yourself, or how to do something like that yourself, how to set up a board, and maybe if you want to broadcast and do podcasts correctly and get good audio out of it, stuff like that, because that makes a huge difference. It really does. On Federal Jack, I have a little file. I call it, I forget what it's called. It's labeled in there, whatever it is. But I give it out to. I don't even remember the link right now. But I have it saved. Anyway, I give it out to people that like run their own websites, or people that have blogs or do podcasts and stuff. And in it is a bunch of different tools, we'll say. A bunch of different, I don't want to use the word truther, but a bunch of alternative media info tools, as it were. And it's stuff to help people do audio editing and some video editing and a few other things that will help make their lives a little easier. And I give it to people and I say, here, rip this stuff for free, go ahead. And I do that because I want to help people get to where I am. Okay, it doesn't take much if you apply yourself and have the right tools. So I can offer you the tools and some of the information, but you, the listener, have to apply that information yourself. And again,
what those easiest things are that there's really no reason that anyone who can send an email couldn't also have a WordPress blog or some kind of blogspot page where they could post up truth or info that will get syndicated to an audience right away.
I agree, Alex. I'm going to cut us off because we got a break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere. We will be right back in a few short minutes. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. During the break, I was picking Alex's brain about a few things, and I know that we're limited for time here, and we're going to get into a few topics about cell phone surveillance and email surveillance and stuff like that. I'm going to pick his brain about that and what's going on with the DHS seizing people's Dwala accounts, basically for using, for trading in Bitcoin and stuff. But first, I want to pick his brain about the possibilities of using AM or shortwave for some sort of wireless internet if there was a kill switch. Now, I know, Alex, that you work with some guys at Hack Miami that are more specialized in this, but on a basic level, the possibility exists, right, that you could use shortwave or the old AM frequencies if the powers that shouldn't be were to turn the internet off, put in a kill switch and just hit the off button. Is there a way? I know you don't really dive too much into the technical aspects of it, but, I mean, from your research, is there the possibility that it can be done?
Yes, absolutely, because the transmission of anything over the over shortwave radio, just as long as you have something to interpret and receive the information that's being passed, you can decipher it. And the TCP/IP protocol, which is what the internet runs on, most of the internet runs on, can be passed over shortwave. The only downside is that it would be very slow, so you would need it could only handle very low amounts of bandwidth. The upside to that is things like BBSs and text-based messaging and audio communications would be able to pass through with no issue, and the TCP/IP level would allow encryption of that communication as well.
So video might be kind of sketchy, but I mean, video is more of a luxury. As far as I'm concerned, if the internet went down and you were still able to get text and sound, voice, some sort of audio through, then
videos and files would be able to be passed. It's just I'm not sure how efficient it would be to be able to stream them, but it would still be able to be passed just at a slower baud rate, like it's an old style download.
Fair enough, but it's better than not having anything at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot better than if they just hit the off button and we went back to like the 1970s or the 1960s where nobody had a computer plugged in and they could talk to each other or send files peer to peer. So at least that there is some a glimmer of hope. I know a lot of people aren't tech savvy, and to them the idea of the internet going into the airwaves and becoming wireless on old AM, the old AM bands or shortwave bands, that sounds alien because the internet to them is all those wires and telephone poles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just the evolution of the infrastructure that started in the 1920s when people were getting into radio and people would have their own home crystal radio kits, and then it eventually evolved into the personal computing system that we have today in the internet. But slowly, as fewer and fewer companies own more and more of the infrastructure, it's going to be easier for them to turn it off when they feel like it.
Do you think? Do you see? Let me rephrase this. Do you see like a drastic change coming in the way that we do things, like another evolution? How like radio, like you just said, the home radio kits evolved into kind of like what we do today. How we're broadcasting, from our home studios and stuff. Do you see another evolution coming? Soon. I mean, I know obviously there will be one, but do you see it coming sooner now because of all this encroachment of big government on freedom of speech?
Yes, and I believe it will be a financial one of like an economic revolution. It will have to do with the cryptocurrencies that are emerging, and which is why we saw actions like we saw today from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE against Mt. Gox and Douala.
Now, we got about 40 seconds before we go to break, and then we'll have a nice long segment coming back on the other side. But Douala and the other website, they were, just to clear this up really quick, they were just websites that allowed people to like trade Bitcoin for cash?
Well, Douala wasn't even that. Douala was just a payment processor very similar to PayPal. You hook it up to your bank account, and you can send money to people for about 75 cents a transfer, and you can buy things from stores that accept Douala. And it was made to be a social networking friendly payment processing solution. And
so this seizure is kind of big then.
Yeah.
This is actually a big thing. Okay, well that's what I thought. We got a break sneaking up. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. When we get back on the other side of a break, I want to get more into this because this obviously has some big economic ramifications for small businesses if small businesses are using this like PayPal. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. During the break, Alex and I were talking and we were going over the ramifications of this whole event. And it's two companies, right? It's Dwala and what's the other company? Alex? Uh-oh, did I lose you?
No, okay, no, still here.
Okay, you're back.
I hit the mute button.
That's okay. What's the two companies? You have, it's Dwala, and what's the second company called?
There's Dwala and Mt. Gox. Dwala is...
No, go on.
Yeah, Dwala is a payment processing solution similar to PayPal in the United States. They're like a social... They market themselves as a social networking-friendly payment processing solution. And Mt. Gox is the largest Bitcoin exchange in the world. They handle 80% of all Bitcoin to U.S. dollar trades, and they're based out of Japan.
Okay, so wait. Mt. Gox, the one that, and we'll get into the I guess you could say attack on them by DHS in a second, but they're the biggest Bitcoin exchange. That's important to point out, and I'll get into that in a second. But you said they handle 80% of it.
According to the published numbers, yes, they handle 80% of Bitcoin to USD transactions.
Okay.
And then USD to Bitcoin.
And what's going on is, if you have a Dwala account, which is like a PayPal account, it's not that they attacked all the Dwala accounts. Like if we had one on Federal Jack, and hey, you can donate if you have Dwala, donate here. That is left untouched. That's fine. As long as somebody was like donating cash, whatever. But it's, if you transferred Bitcoin from Mt. Gox to Dwala, that money automatically gets seized, correct?
Correct. That seems to have happened today to many people. The company that handles Mt. Gox's payments through Dwala had their assets frozen and turned over to the government. And so anyone who was in the process of withdrawing funds from Mt. Gox through Dwala lost their funds in that transaction, very similar to the way they went after the poker players. And the raid was from Immigration and Customs Enforcement through the Department of Homeland Security, and the mainstream media is likening it to the seizure of poker funds. So perhaps the use of Bitcoin recently and several mainstream gambling sites might have something to do with this seizure, but whatever it is, it's an attack on. It definitely seems to be a move of economic warfare, because the price of cryptocurrencies are currently plummeting.
And that's the point that I wanted to get into, which is what I said to you off air. I said, I'll bet you, the market is reacting to this, and you said it's reacting horribly. It's dropping. And because I had actually made the comment to you, wow, this is going to affect everybody from Bitcoin miners to people that use it to buy stuff, to the stores that accept it, to people that just hoard it. And that's when you said, yeah, the market is taking a huge dump because of this.
The seizure has essentially prevented people in the United States from being able to withdraw their Bitcoin into the United States banking system without having to engage in some kind of heavily taxed and regulated international wire transfer, domestic wire transfer. In fact, there would have to be an international wire transfer because there are no U.S. exchanges that deal in that service. And so essentially what used to be a very simple method of obtaining Bitcoin by depositing money into the wallet from your bank account and then purchasing Bitcoin off Mt. Gox, and then selling your Bitcoin at Mt. Gox and withdrawing into your Dwala account and then withdrawing to your bank account has now somehow been deemed criminal by the Department of Homeland Security, and they're going after people for it as for unknown reasons. So Dwala is saying to talk to Mt. Gox, and Mt. Gox is saying to talk to Dwala, and that's the only thing that is clear is that there's a warrant for the seizure issued out of Maryland.
I'll tell you what it is. At least this is my analysis of it anyway. Our early initial analysis. Economic warfare. This is a military-style operation with military precision. They knew exactly where to hit to disrupt the whole network. Rather than run in and not know where to go and run around like a chicken with their head cut off, they figured out exactly what was the linchpin that would screw everybody. What one action would have ripples all the way across the Bitcoin market. Bam.
And it's going to be a double-edged sword, and they might be doing it to benefit themselves because it's plummeted, but it's not plummeted to a point that where it's still not at $100 plus per Bitcoin. It's still over $100 per coin. It's just not 125 like it used to be. And the market adjustment is that it's only been a slight percentage, even though it has been downward. So now could be a time that they're just using to buy it all up, and by preventing the U.S. market, the average U.S. consumer, an easy way to access it, they're essentially creating a new underground marketplace that's going to make the coin even more valuable and essentially push it into underground activity where it hadn't been used before, which could be valuable to certain government blackout projects.
Remember the last time the feds seized something? We talked off air about this, and I had other hackers on to discuss this. And it was this reminds me of the FBI seizure of that server, that it was that spammer server. And they said that they had seized it. Remember, like a couple years ago, it was in Russia.
Where they took an entire data center in Texas.
Yeah, and they took
like
at gunpoint. Yeah, and they ended up pretty much replacing the servers there with FBI servers, but they didn't tell anybody for like 3 or 4 months.
Oh yes, that was the DNS changer Trojan. That was That was something different.
But remember how they took?
That was a crazy one.
Yeah, but remember how they took all the servers and they didn't tell anybody for like 3 or 4 months that they had replaced.
Yeah, they just monitored the traffic for several months.
What if that's what they're doing here?
Or they've been monitoring. Well, all the Bitcoin transactions are openly monitorable. If anyone can go to blockchain.info or any similar site, type a Bitcoin address and see the complete history of it. There really is no more perfect currency for the New World Order to use than some kind of cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, because it's open, it's cashless, and
well, that's what I'm saying. What happens if this is their way of getting their fingers into it? You know what I'm saying? Like remember I said this before on air to the listeners. It's not guys like David Rockefeller you have to worry about. That guy's 97 in a wheelchair, and the only thing he conquers is not crapping on himself because he's hooked up to a colostomy bag. Okay, that's the reality of the situation. It's people like his grandkids who have this, technical edge that they didn't have, when Rockefeller was his grandkids' age. Those are the people that you have to worry about, because they're still in that sociopathic, psycho bloodline, and they're still of that thinking, but now they understand how the internet works and all this other stuff. So who knows? And the other thing it makes me wonder is, could they be buying up all the Bitcoin? I mean, they've done it with the bullets, right? That they've done so with the bullets and dried the marketplace up. So what's to say that they wouldn't do so with Bitcoin? Because isn't there a finite amount? There's not infinite. There's a finite amount of Bitcoin. So if they went out and started getting people to dump it, and then they, in return, were the ones going and buying all of it up, couldn't they just buy all the Bitcoin up and then put it, essentially?
There's several millionaire and billionaires who are attempting to corner the market and pull pump and dumps with cryptocurrencies. The thing about it is it's an unregulated market, so it's completely legal to do. And if someone like the Rothschild family were to be involved in something like that, it wouldn't surprise me, because you have they're openly running bullionvault.com, which is a digital gold and silver exchange, and that's a stone's throw away from being able to trade crypto the way that site is set up.
So do you think that this is an all-out attack on cryptocurrencies, or do you think, what's your take on this? I mean, to me, it looks like obviously it's an attack on a form of cryptocurrency at any time.
It's definitely an attack on cryptocurrency, but it's going to have the same effect that any attack on a decentralized resource that there's an unlimited demand for will have. It'll make it a more valuable commodity, and it will basically push it further into the underground, making it a more desirable and profitable.
Oh, like drugs.
Yeah, correct, quite similar. And maybe because of things like Silk Road, that's why you have raids and crackdowns and seizures like this, because people are using Bitcoin for illegal transactions. But it's no more than, it's the same thing as using cash for an illegal transaction. People will trade anything. They could trade clams or seashells for drugs as well, and on Flintstones.
Well, then they'll go and make wampum, which is what the Indians used to use, which is seashells and stuff and clams. They'll go and make wampum, which is like at least hundreds, if not thousands of years old, the way the Indians use it as currency. I'm sure that the Fed and DHS will do wampum seizures, and they'll be, busting in the Indian reservations, and you have seashells, get on the floor! Be SWAT teaming, the native reservations and taking them out just because they have shells. And of course, I'm being sarcastic, but am I really being sarcastic? I mean, couldn't it get that way? And that's where it's headed with this type of stuff. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that's essentially where it's become, because they're seizing an account based on the trading of encrypted files, and the files have no value other than what people have assigned to them. And that's essentially what a Bitcoin is. It's just an encrypted file that's generated by someone's computer, and then it's passed around the network.
So, is this going to have big impact on the Bitcoin community, you think? I mean, what do you foresee, knowing what you know about hacking Bitcoin and how everything works? What's your personal analysis on this? Do you think it's going to have a big impact on it?
I think it's going to make the prices lower for a temporary period of time while there's a panic sell. So anyone who's interested in buying Bitcoin should probably pick some up right now while it's cheap. And same with any other alternative cryptocurrencies. That's there. The only difficulty is going to be moving it from U.S. dollars and into U.S. dollars and back. So essentially, it needs to just be treated like a video game currency, and if you're going to buy it, don't do it in a large amount. Just kind of do it like you would World of Warcraft gold. It's as the economic interesting experiment it is, not the New World Order currency. It's starting to become.
Yeah, I liked Bitcoin when it first came out. I liked the fact that it gave people anonymity to do things.
Well, it's only as anonymous as if you use it, right? If you post your name and your hash, then it's not anonymous at all. It shows every transaction you've ever done.
Oh, well, see, then there you go. That it is more of a. So, let me ask you this: do you think Bitcoin serves the dark New World Order? I mean, we have a change coming. It's whether or not we want.
It's like any technological tool. It's like any tool, like a firearm. It can be used to repress, or can it be used to liberate?
Okay, so that's an interesting take on it, and I think that's the most logical take on it. You're the one that actually also, I give you credit for this. I've said off air or on air before. We had an off air conversation about hacking, and you said, "Look, you should really never get mad at a hacker." And I was like, "Huh?" And I said, even ones that would hack, Federal Jack, and you said, yeah, hackers are hackers. Do you get mad at a lion for chasing down a zebra and killing it and eating it? No, because it's a lion. You expect that. So that is a logical way of looking at it, and you are correct when in both aspects when you say both things. But I just wonder if they're going to try to twist, especially now that they have this company, Mt. Gox, right? If they're I'm sure if they're dealing with the DHS probably gave them a limit on what they're allowed to say, right?
Well, what's interesting about Mt. Gox is they're a Japanese-based company. They're compliant with Japanese anti-money laundering regulations, which are more stringent than American anti-money laundering regulations, which is what's so surprising about all of this. Because both Douala, who's a United States company, and Mt. Gox, which is a Japanese company, were compliant allegedly with their soon to be compliant with every regard of AML regulations for their respective jurisdictions. What's surprising is this seizure, and no one from either side talking about it, other than a large sum of money being turned over to the federal government and Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security throwing their stamp of approval on it.
Well, you see, that's why I'm saying I wonder if they were threatened, legally shut your mouth, gag order, or whatever, and then they just can't say anything, and you don't even know why. I'm going to cut us off. Very probable. I'm going to cut us off because we got a break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Final segment of the first hour. That means final segment with my guest tonight, because Alex is a busy man. He cannot hang out for hour number 2, which is not a big deal. It is what it is, but since we have limited time, Alex, I'll have to get you back on again sometime in the future, but I want to continue to pick your brain about this Bitcoin deal, because this is breaking news, and this is a big deal. So in the last segment here, we got about 5 minutes. Go ahead, I'm going to give you the floor. What are your final thoughts on this whole scenario? with the raid and the future of Bitcoin. And I'll leave it with this question. I'll give you this question, and then you can answer it at some point. Do you think that now that they've interfered with this company, this Japanese company that does 80% of the Bitcoin handling, we'll say, according to their numbers, right? Even if it was 70%, that's still a large chunk. So do you think that this is a way for them to perhaps get some sort of concrete monitoring system or their fingers into it a little more? Because like you said, it's just a piece of technology. It's what you do with it that makes it good or evil. So do you think that this is their way, the powers that shouldn't be, of getting their hands into it?
Yes, it's definitely their way of either getting their hands into it or trying to slow it down, because they don't understand the technology fully and they don't want it to flourish. It's one of the two. And just to clarify, the Mt. Gox exchange and the Douala exchange are still operational. The only thing that's been affected is the ability to transfer funds from Mt. Gox into Douala. Those who have been trying to do that have been greeted with a letter saying their funds were seized by Homeland Security, and that in itself is fairly terrifying. And it's still very early. The letters just went out today, and no one's talking about what's happening with whom. And we're gonna only the next few days will tell exactly what's going on. And I'm sure by the time the conference rolls around, when we do the panels on cryptocurrency and the panels on government regulation of the internet, we'll have some more concrete evidence and intelligence that we'll be able to discuss and elaborate on.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with the future of these cryptocurrencies now that they're, the powers that shouldn't be are trying to put their fingers into them. And people can say, well, it's a new world order, blah, blah, blah. It's a new world order perceived currency, but I don't know.
One of the most recent alternative cryptocurrencies that just emerged was called China Coin, which was pretty interesting because it operated a lot faster than Bitcoin because the blockchain was smaller, and when it emerged onto the cryptocurrency marketplace, one China Coin was worth 1 yuan, which was about 16 cents. So, and having a market entry of 1-to-1 with the country with the country of origin national currencies is pretty significant, even if it is just a single yuan. And if it were to inflate to the price of a 100-to-1 ratio, that's also fairly significant as well. So we're seeing, just as all of that was starting to come to head, we see the DTRH seizure.
Well, let me ask you this, because we got about 2 minutes, so I'll let you elaborate on this. Do you think that these cryptocurrencies originated from the powers that shouldn't be, or as a tool of some sort, or do you think that they originated from ingenuity because or necessity? Because necessity is the mother of all invention, right? Like the old saying goes. So
I think they originated just as economic experiments and tests of open source software programming skill and hardware performance capability. I believe that's where they originated from, and the potentials that that spawned from that led to where we are today. I don't think it was intended to be what it is. It just became that way.
And now that
I perhaps also don't know enough about the history.
Okay, fair enough analysis. And if you look at it that way, that perhaps it did have a grassroots thing, then this whole seizure does make a little more sense. Like I said, perhaps they're trying to now solidify their control over it because it scares the crap out of them because they can't control it. Just like anything else, everything that they have no control over is what they're attacking. That's what they've been going after. That's what I see. So. I think if it is an original concept and not something by them, I think it scares the crap out of them. Or maybe it was something they created and it was taken out of their hands, and just like the internet was. And
what's interesting is that Bitcoin was started by an anonymous individual. I'm not sure. I believe Satoshi was the last name of the pseudonym that's used. But it was a Japanese programmer who developed who wrote a white paper that conceptualized the theory behind the crypto coin itself, and he's anonymous, so it technically could be anyone. It's still unknown.
Interesting. We'll have to look into it more. Alex, we're out of time. Again, I'm going to have you back on sooner rather than later. And thank you so much again dude, for what you do for federaljack.com. You don't get enough credit, and neither does James, for all the stuff you guys do behind the scenes for me. Ladies and gentlemen, if it weren't for Alex and my other friend James, you wouldn't have federaljack.com. It's as simple as that. Okay, I'm good, but I ain't that good. Not without these guys. So, Alex, my hat is off to you, sir, and I salute you, and I know the listeners salute you. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, brother.
Cool, thanks, man. Good talking to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back with hour number 2. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back in one short minute. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye, from federaljack.com. It is May 14th, 2013. Again, from hour number 1, I want you guys, if you get a chance, if you're in the South Florida area this weekend, go check out Hack Miami's Hacker Conference. There is a bunch of stuff going on. I myself will be down there taking the ham radio class. I urge everybody that is in the area that can go to go. And, again, purchase your tickets now. You can go over to hackmiami.org, and there's info over there. I would definitely go check it out. If you're into technology, if you're a hacker, if you're a computer techie geek, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to label yourself as, if you're into it, I suggest you go over and check it out. Even if you want to just get ham radio certified, I mean, $15, $20, whatever, even if it's $20, even if it's 30. But I think it's around like 15 or 20 if I remember correctly, and that's what Alex said, son. It's around there too. But even if it's a couple more dollars than that, it doesn't matter. Most places I've seen it when you go to conventions and stuff like DEF CON and things like that, it's well over $100. And the guy that's doing it is a pro. He's not some Johnny-come-lately. He's charging low prices because he wants people to learn how to do it. That's why they hooked up with the guy doing the ham radio classes, because he wants to get the information out there. So he's just charging, enough to cover his expenses pretty much for going out there, but he's not making any money on it. He's pretty much breaking even, and that's his contribution to helping people learn something and helping humanity evolve. Now, if only more people would do that, we'd be out of this crap tomorrow. Yes, it'd be that fast if everybody would just stop and think about how easy we could get out of it. The problem is everybody goes, well, if we did that, then, I wouldn't make any money, and then what happens? Well, see, if everybody did that and volunteered just a little bit, things would be much different. If we didn't, worship the almighty dollar, well, it's what makes the world go round. No, it's not. It's what you think it's what makes the world go round, and that's one of the ways that you're controlled. I used to be controlled the same way. I used to think that, I used to worry about, oh my God, I have to pay, I need money for this, I need money for that. And not that I was ever really materialistic, but I used to have those worries. I grew up in a household where, in my later childhood years, I had to worry at times whether or not they were going to, turn the electricity off and things like that because we didn't have money here or there for a period of time. So I understand, but when I was a kid, I understood at a base level that 9 to 5 was wrong, and that we were meant from there. If we're created from God, this almighty creation or whatever you want to call it, the universe, there's got to be more to the reason we're here than just getting up and going to work 9 to 5 for some crappy job. Okay, so it's not. There's more to it than that, and I knew that even when I was younger. From the time I was very young. So, and it didn't take me going through any type of hardship or anything to figure that out. I just kind of realized that there had to be more. I mean, if you logically sit and think about it, there has to be more to our existence here than getting up and going to work, right? To pay bills. If that's all you think we're here for, then wow, no wonder your life is depressing. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. So, everybody has been messaging me on Facebook. A lot of the listeners on Twitter. I've been getting emails. What's your take on the Obama administration getting slammed? It's one thing after another. Yes, we can get him out finally. And who are you going to replace him with? Who are you going to put in? Another politician who tells you he'll give you hope and change, maybe covered in different words. There will be no change. It'll be another puppet of the powers that shouldn't be if he gets out. If he got impeached and, shamed into resigning, which I don't know if you could really shame him into doing anything. I don't know if he's got any shame. But even if he was, some backroom dealed and, whatever, and he got out, who takes his place? Joe Biden? You really want Biden as the president? Really? You want him? That guy? Why do you think you'd pick somebody like Biden as your vice president? I mean, obviously Biden probably had something on him. He had to have had some sort of dirt or whatever to be able to even get in that position. But why else have some? I mean, I would look at it like, hey man, you can never take me out, because if you take me out, you got to deal with him, and he's a moron. And Biden's not as stupid as people think he is, but he is. He just has a big mouth, and he can stick his foot in it from time to time. But again, what are you going to do? You're going to go after Obama? Oh, we've got him pinned now. He lied about Benghazi. Ooh, shocker. Somebody asked me the other day, what's your take on Benghazi? Well, I did my show with Steve on Friday about it. We went into detail and everything. But honestly, is it really that big of a shocker? Oh, my God. Lies about Benghazi. Don't. What's not getting talked about? Wow, people are having this epiphany that they lied about it when right from the get-go, it was like, okay, this smells like crap. What about the AP? What about them, Popeye? They were bugged by the Department of Justice. Right. And everybody is disavowing any knowledge of it. And it's the Eric Holder, well, it was the Deputy Attorney General doing it. It wasn't me. Everybody's running around, oh my God, this is another scandal we can hit the Obama administration with. We've got him on the mat. Okay, so he resigns, then what do you get? Then you get that moron. And then what? Then the country is so divided. Oh, chaos. Out of order. Chaos. Whose motto is that? Out of chaos, order. Or order out of chaos is actually the correct terminology. And I forget how to say it in Latin. It's like order abdo chaos, or something like that. But it's, out of their created chaos comes their created order, basically. Problem, reaction, solution, as David Icke calls it, or the Hegelian dialectic. What if they know he's so unpopular that this is all being pumped out there on purpose? So then they get him to resign. Eventually, maybe he'll resign like Nixon, right? And then you get Biden that pops in, and he's a moron, and he'll make decisions that piss people off. So people aren't going to want to vote him in. Well, who would run? Who would be their next puppet? I mean, Popeye. Who could you possibly believe that they would put in to run? The former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, is who I think that they would put in to run. Remember, she did meet with the Bilderberg scumbags and Barry back in 2008. Oh, you don't remember that? Yeah, they were in Chantilly, Virginia. And it just so happened that that was when, if you remember, Robert Gibbs got the entire entourage, the press corps that was following the campaign around, the Obama campaign and the Clinton campaign, got them all onto an airplane. And only after they took off and they were in the air, they told them that neither Hillary nor Barry Soetoro, Barack Obama, were on the plane. They met with the Bilderbergs. So what if this is chaos that they're creating so that they can have some semblance of order out of it down the road. Oh, they don't think that far in advance, Popeye. Yes, they do. They think way farther in advance than anybody gives them credit for. And again, it's a younger generation. It's guys that are my age and older now that are running the show over there. It's not people like David Rockefeller. Again, that guy's 97 years old, and the only thing he's conquering is not crapping on himself. He's nothing. He's but a figurehead. And they like to keep him that way, so keeps the focus on him. He doesn't care. Again, he's 97 years old. He's at death's door. Do you think he cares if you dislike him? He's so rich and filled with hubris anyway, he looks at you like you're a piece of cattle. He doesn't care what you think. So yeah, what better person for the powers that shouldn't be to allow to be like a lightning rod for the anger and the focus, right? When it's really people like his grandchildren's age that are running things. This younger technocratic elite, which I've talked about many a times on this broadcast. Have I not? It is not these old, crusty dirtbags that used to run things anymore. It's this younger generation that they've been bringing in and molding behind the scenes ever so quietly. Those are the people we need to pay attention to. Those are the people that understand how the internet works. I mean, Rockefeller probably doesn't even know how to do more than turn his computer on. I'm sure he doesn't understand a lot of the technology that's out today. A lot of these older people don't. I'm not saying older people in general. Actually, if you looked at it, the elites, a lot of them, even the people in Congress and stuff, the people that I guess would consider themselves to be elite, they're not really elite. I just use that term, but it's, I mean, what makes them elite? Because they have a little bit more money and they had a better, or they had a chance to have a more classical education. Please, you could educate yourself better by homeschooling yourself and doing all your own education. I gave myself the equivalent of like a $200,000 college education by myself. I just actually went and got real books, not these Rockefeller controlled or powers that shouldn't be controlled textbooks that they put out there. They pump garbage into your kids' heads with. You could educate yourself way cheaper, ladies and gentlemen, than you can for going to college. But I don't want to sidetrack myself. Actually, if you want to see a good documentary about that, it's called, I think it's called The College Conspiracy, if I remember. I think it's as simple as that. Just go on YouTube and look up College Conspiracy movie. I'm sure it'll pop up. I know people that went to college for 4 years and they have degrees in whatever, and they are working at McDonald's because $100,000 later and a diploma later, and they can't get a job. It's just the way it is. It's a big scam. And besides, when you're in college, a lot of those huge universities are controlled by the Central Intelligence Agency, so what's being pumped out is not what you would expect. That's why a lot of their kids come home from college, and a lot of parents are like, what the hell is wrong with my kid? What the hell are they doing up at that school? What kind of professors you got? They got professors who believe that they're commies, but again, communism is Illuminism, Marx, Weishaupt. I actually got into a fight on Twitter the other day over this. I said this on air the other day with some idiot. They were praising Karl Marx, and I just told them that they should go educate themselves as to where Marx really, his beliefs and writings actually emanated from, and then who he was connected with, and who financed him, and blah, 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 blah. And I was called a conspiracy theorist because I know who financed Karl Marx. So because I actually know who financed the person that this individual was praising, I'm a conspiracy theorist because I know history, because I understand how things work, because I educated myself as to the reality of things, as opposed to spending $200,000 to go to the university I'm sure this individual went to and was fed Marxist garbage. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much. I have a few stories I want to go over tonight. A few things I want to get into. One of them, I'm gonna end up going probably over this a little bit longer, even in the next segment too. But down here in Florida, Volusia County sheriffs saw a man named Marlon Brown driving without his seatbelt. They attempted to pull him over, and he took off. He fled, and the guy had he had a suspended driver's license, and he was on probation. And the guy was probably scared of, and because he was driving on a suspended license, it's going to violate his probation. I don't want to go back to jail. I'm just trying to straighten things out. And people go, well, then he wouldn't have had a suspended license. Well, that's not true always. I mean, the state can use things against you. You don't know why. None of us know why he's on probation or what he did to even get that way, or if he was in jail or just put on probation. So we can't judge him. All we know is that the man was on probation and that he was driving on a suspended license, and when he saw the cops behind him, he got scared, which happens. I mean, fear, right? And the cops, remember, they're taught to operate on fear too. So Volusia County starts chasing him, and in the middle of this, it goes through DeLand, Florida, or Dayland, or however you pronounce it, DeLand, whatever. And two of the local PD there from DeLand took up part of the chase. And the guy went down a dead-end road, and they pulled up, and the guy got out of the car and started, running towards the woods in the cul-de-sac there. And the first car stopped, and the second car decided that it was just going to clip him and run him over and literally drag him. And so the guy was literally killed, run over and dragged for a seatbelt violation. Well, he was driving on a suspended license. Oh, okay, so I understand. So driving on a suspended license automatically means that capital punishment is completely fine then. It's okay, right? No, it's not. I mean, first of all, do you understand why driver's licenses are there to begin with, and the whole concept of driver's licenses and everything else? People were driving cars long before there was a requirement for a license. And I don't want to hear that, well, people that go get their licenses, they've taken classes on how cars work. Please. Maybe back in the day, they focused more on how cars work. I don't know what the hell driver's ed teaches now, or what people are teaching their kids now, but these kids can't drive. A lot of people can't drive, so I don't want to hear that just getting a license means that that means that you've taken courses in driving. How many people get their licenses legally, and they don't, from other countries that come over here, and they're here illegally, and they get licenses because they know somebody or whatever, and they get through the system, and they can't drive, and they cause accidents. So the license really doesn't mean anything. It's just a concept of control by the state. Really need to understand what licenses and all that stuff is about. So I don't want to hear, well, he was driving on a suspended license, so that automatically means that capital punishment is good. What they did was proper. I don't care if he's on probation. It doesn't matter what he did. We still have due process in this country. And the police do not have the right to run you down because you ran from them because you weren't wearing your seatbelt. I don't care if, well, that gave us, they gave us a suspicion of you, so we're going to run you over now. BS. Absolutely unacceptable. Capital punishment for a seatbelt offense. Well done. Well done, DeLand, Florida. Well done. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. So, no, I don't think capital punishment fits a seatbelt offense. Just absolutely unacceptable. People need to call the DeLand Police Department, and they need to ask the chief if they think it's okay that their officers run people down. See, this all goes to the training of the officers. We used to have peace officers in this country. We don't have that anymore. We have people that now sign up because they're under the belief that when they become a police officer that they have special powers over other people in society and that they can do what they want to other people because, hey, I'm a cop. Look at the cop that just went nuts and attacked a drive-through worker over nothing because he got into an argument with it wasn't the worker he attacked. I'm sorry. He attacked the guy that was first in line waiting at the drive-through. That's what it was. Out of nowhere, he was waiting back in line, and the guy at the front was waiting for something on his order. Lord knows what. Wasn't even his fault. And this guy comes up out of nowhere and assaults him, pushes him back in his car, and draws his gun and puts it up to his head, and then runs off. Well, it turns out the guy's a detective. You go through the news every day, you keep seeing things like this. Every single day, you see stories about cops losing it and going above and beyond. I saw a video earlier today I posted on my Facebook page. Cops coming up to a house. We're going to kick your door in. And the residents inside the house are all there by the sliding glass door. And they're like, there's no problems here. You can go away. They said, well, why won't you come outside? And they said, well, because we don't live in a police state. I don't have to come outside. You can obviously see that we're all right here, and there's no problem, so you can go away. Well, we're here. We were called for a domestic situation. All the people in the house said, there's no problem. There's no domestic situation. We don't know who called. We don't, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And they're saying, we're not going to come outside. And the cop said, well, step back. We're going to kick your door in. You don't have the right to just kick someone's door. And they said, do you have a warrant? They said, no, we don't need a warrant. Kicked the door in. Came in, kicked the door in. Came in, tasered everybody in the house. Everybody. They nailed... I'm not sure if they tasered the woman. They might have just assaulted her, physically grabbing her. But the two guys that were in the house, at least one of the men that was saying, get out of my house, and the guy with the camera, both got tased. Lord knows what happened to the female. The camera goes off when the taser gets deployed on the dude with the camera. The last thing you hear is him kind of like, ugh, as the camera goes black. So Lord knows what happened. But I'm sure they all got arrested. I'm surprised the footage was still on the camera. And I don't want to hear, well, they did get a domestic call, Popeye. Because I posted the video on my Facebook page and somebody was like, well, what would have happened if they came back a couple hours later and everybody was dead? Well, that's the price you pay in a free society. Cops are not superheroes. So what you're telling me is, in order to prevent the possibility that they might even be death, which you don't know if that's even the problem, but you're just going to go there assuming that that's what's going to be the outcome. So you kick in someone's door illegally and taser them. Well, we got a call. Doesn't matter if you got a call. Well, we have to sort things out. We did sort things out. There's nothing going on. You can go away. Well, we want to know why you won't come out. That's suspicious. It's not suspicious. It's their personal property. Just because you have a badge and a costume does not mean that you have the right to go kick someone's door in. Well, yes, it does, Popeye, because I went to school and then I got hired by a police department. See, I don't think most people understand. First, people go to college. Then they go to the police academy. Then they get hired. At least down here, that's how it works in Florida. You go to college, then you go to the police academy, and usually you have to put yourself through it if you're not already hired by a city. Or perhaps a county, but usually you have to put yourself through it, and then you'll probably get reimbursed if you get picked up by whatever city, depending on their own statutes or whatever on hiring officers. Each place, municipality, has their own different way of doing it, but basically you have to go to college first, then the police academy, then you get hired by one of the cities. You go, hey, I'm a certified law enforcement officer in the state of Florida, and I'd like to be a cop in this town or this city or this city. That's how it works. At least down here, anyway. So it doesn't mean that they're any better than anybody else. They didn't, from birth, they didn't come out of the womb of copdom and get, anointed. You will be a cop when you get older. Bing! It's a costume that is animated. That is it. We'll be right back. Officers, sheriffs... Those uniforms that you put on are nothing more than costumes, gentlemen and ladies. That's it. You don't have any special power as an individual. The uniform does. You're just the robot that animates it. Don't be a robot anymore. The people that you're taught to hate are your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, your husbands, your wives, your lovers, your friends, your neighbors, your cousins. They are you, they are me. Don't fall for the crap that you're being taught and propagandized with. Look up history. Look up the Night of Long Knives. Look up Rome's Purge. Go look what happened to the brown shirts, what the Nazis did to them. Understand that you are called the dogs by the powers that shouldn't be. Understand that they look at you lower than they look at the regular citizens. They call the citizenry the dead because they are not truly living. They're not connected to their inner self, their soul. They're walking biological androids. But you, they have even more disdain for because you willfully turn on your own kind for money and security and allegiance to some fake group. Why do you think when you go in the military, they give you dog tags? I'm not making this up. The slightest bit of research and you'll uncover this. It's time to decide whose side you're really on. It's time to do a little soul searching and stop being cowards and going along to get along, because you're not men and you're not strong, independent women. If you go along to get along and you violate people's rights just to make yourself feel better because you animate some crappy costume with some crappy badge on it and you're given some crappy job by the crappy powers that shouldn't be, you're no better than anybody else at all. And you need to realize that. You took an oath to protect people, not corporations. And if you did take an oath to protect a corporation, then you need to check yourself. You need to go look in the mirror and ask yourself, is it worth selling out your children's future and your grandchildren's future and their children's future? If there even will be one by that point. So you can wear a cool uniform and have some semblance of what you call respect from anybody around you? Go check yourself and look in the mirror. I challenge you. Search your soul if you still have one. To quote Ice Cube, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Selling your soul will lead you nowhere, and you'll only regret it later, trust me. I know all too well, and I know too many people that have come forward afterwards, later on in life and said, if I only had more time, I would go back and do things differently. I wouldn't be part of that. I know so many guys that have quit being police officers because they don't want to partake in what's going on because there's no more honor in it anymore. Unfortunately, the bad outweigh the good. So to all you power-hungry a-holes out there who love to animate costumes and pretend you're cooler than everybody else because you animate that costume, I challenge you to take that costume off. Or if you want, you can wear the costume, take the badge off, take your gun off, take your nightstick and your taser, take off your little bat utility belt, all your weapons that you have to wield on people who aren't armed because you fear them. Let's see you take off your little bat utility belt and walk down the street with no weapons and just take your badge off too. You can keep the uniform on if you'd like, but take the badge off. Take the guns off, the weapons. Walk down the street and get in people's faces like you do now. Oh, you won't, because you don't have the weapons on you. Oh. So are you really a brave individual? Or are you just a brainless automaton animating a costume again? Go home and look in the mirror and ask yourself why you do the job you do. Well, I have to pay for my kids' meals, Popeye. Well, that's great. Again, is buying them a bowl of cereal now worth selling out their future and your grandkids' future and their kids' future? Ask yourself that. What kind of future are you going to leave your child? You can figure out another way to pay for a bowl of cereal. Maybe if we all started to come together, we could take care of each other when people were in trouble and they needed a hand here or there. If someone was out of work, we wouldn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. That would happen more too if we weren't so separated from one another. We want to snitch on each other for every little thing now. We weren't so afraid of one another. We're taught to be afraid of one another. That's something that has to be learned by us. Something that comes naturally to fear your neighbor and think that your neighbor is Al-Qaeda and going to come, bite you. That has to be propagandized and pumped into your head by the scumbag powers that shouldn't be. Anyway, something I want to cover before I digress too much. Although, speaking it like it is to the automatons in costume is never a waste of time, and it's never really digressing, but there are a few things I want to cover before the end of the broadcast, and one of them would be the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the TPP. Now, what the hell is the TPP? Well, just like all these other partnerships, you have the EU, you have what's the other one? The NAU, that they say doesn't exist, the North American Union, which is really the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. But anyway, there's another one. You have the TPP. And the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, is interesting. The membership includes the United States, Mexico, Canada, and there's two other countries over here on this side of the globe, and then it's people like Australia, Japan. But here, I have a little bit of audio about it because Russia Today did a quick clip on it, and they actually had somebody that knows a little bit more about it. And I want to get this out there because this is something the listeners need to keep their eye on. The TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Well, get ready for another round of Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, the 17th round to be exact. And still very little information about this massive international collaboration is actually known. Government officials in 12 countries are meeting with the representatives from over 600 businesses.
Here, I'll read you a list. It's Canada, the United States, Mexico, Peru, Chile, Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and Brunei Darussalam. I just murdered that country's name, but you can go if you just type in TPP membership list. I'm sure it'll bring it up in any search engine. Anyway, back to the clip.
Is to discuss international free trade. Talks are set to end in October, with individual governments voting on the agreement shortly after. If passed, it would be the biggest trade agreement in history. But something this big isn't without its fair share of critics. Groups have criticized the secrecy of these negotiations, the breadth of what the TPP actually covers, and the possibility of it overriding individual country laws, and so much more. One of those critics is Lori Wallish. She's the director of a Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. Thank you so much for joining me. So let's start off by talking about this schedule that they have in Lima and the 17th round of negotiations. It's still very unclear what they were doing. They put out a schedule giving us some kind of idea of what's going on, and it involves lots of activities for stakeholders. But what really do we know about what's going on there aside from this little very vague release?
Well, unfortunately, the schedule is typically the same, whatever they put on paper. Representatives from 11 countries meet together behind closed doors. In the lobbies and in meetings before and after are corporate representatives trying to influence the talks. The meetings and negotiations are trying to set up a set of binding international rules that each of the countries would have to conform all of their domestic laws to. Most of it has nothing to do with trade. Rather, all of these negotiators are sitting down, despite the fact that their parliaments or congresses are doing business as normal, and rewriting huge parts of their domestic law. So, for instance, one of the things I know they're talking about this round of negotiations is the 17th time in 3 years that they've gotten together, and before that was a whole year under Bush. So since 2008, this dance has been going on in the dark. This time they're talking about visas for workers. Countries in this involved in Vietnam, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia. Visas for workers to come here and work. And you would say, isn't Congress having a discussion right now about immigration? Why are they having this similar discussion behind closed doors between a few countries? Very good question. Lots of issues like that are in the TPP. Financial deregulation, requiring us to import food that doesn't meet our standards, limits on internet freedom, and, very scary, a proposal to set up tribunals outside our court system where foreign corporations could directly sue our governments and grab our tax dollars right out of the Treasury.
That's a very interesting point, and I think you did a really good job kind of wrapping up all the dangers that critics have of this behind-the-doors negotiations. One of the aspects that really caught my attention while I was researching this is that negotiators within the U.S. are lobbying for the fact that they don't want Congress to be able to debate it. They want simply a yes or a no answer. It's called fast-tracking. Talk about the dangers of fast-tracking.
So fast-track is a very arcane procedure used only 16 times since it was cooked up by, shocker, Richard Nixon. So it was first in 1974 when trade agreements really only covered real trade stuff like border taxes, tariffs. Came up with this procedure, and the idea was to speed through Congress with no amendments, limited debate, tariff cuts. Well, now here comes a trade negotiation. It's really like a misbranding, right? The TPP is much bigger than trade. And the idea that is now being kicked around by some of the really big businesses and President Obama is to get this arcane procedure, and this is how it works. The executive branch gets to negotiate and sign an agreement without Congress actually getting to vote first. It then gets to write legislation changing all of our domestic laws to meet the agreement it negotiated and signed without Congress. It then gets to send it to Congress, and the normal committee procedure is forbidden. No review, no amendments in committee. And then it goes to the floor, 45 days, automatic yes or no votes. No amendments, 20 hours of debate, House, Senate. It's like a legislative luge run. You can put any terrible thing, and sheer force of gravity takes it right through Congress and into our lives. Very dangerous. You don't need this, obviously, to pass an agreement that the public would like. You only need this to shove through Congress something that is bad for the country. And so this is the process that got us into the World Trade Organization, that got us into NAFTA. But we've had hundreds of decent trade agreements that didn't use this. So a very dangerous process, but it only can go into place if Congress agrees. So we all have the ability, by telling our members of Congress, they have constitutional exclusive authority over trade, and we better tell them they need to stick to their authority, not give it away. We expect them to work for us. And that starts with not giving away their power to make sure we have good trade agreements.
Very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for coming into the studio. Lori Walsh, Director of Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I think RT did a pretty good job putting that into, wrapping it all into a nutshell, and that's why I wanted to play that for you. We need to keep an eye on this. Call up your senator, call up your congressman, get your neighbor involved, let everybody know this is bad. Again, the only time they need to do things in secret behind closed doors outside of public view is when the public wouldn't go along with it. Think about it. It's not rocket science. We'll be right back.
Either we heal as a team, or we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. The 6 inches in front of your face. Now I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The ideas of freedom, peace, love, logic, rational thought, they are bulletproof. I know it looks scary. I know when you turn on the lamestream dinosaur media, as soon as you hit the channel to whatever it is, it's fear. That's all I hear. I don't even hear the words that come out of the box. Well, I don't watch TV. But if I'm someplace and one is on, I don't even hear the words that come out. I don't even hear what they're talking about. I just hear fear. It's almost like Charlie Brown's teacher, but that's, you just hear them repeating fear. Sometimes I do hear wonk, 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 wonk. Anyway, that's all I hear. Never positivity. They never try to cover, maybe depressing stuff or bad stuff and leave you with a positive message. And that's why I try to set myself apart from the rest. Even those in the alternative media, there's not a lot of people that do that. And I'm not bashing anybody. It's just sometimes you get caught so much up in this web of what's going on, because it is huge, that one can forget that we can put out negative energy sometimes without even realizing that we're doing it. And I don't like to end the broadcast that way. No matter what I'm doing or who I'm on with, I always try to end with some sort of solution or some sort of positive message. And I like to play inches for you because I know it's inspirational and I know it actually gets people pumped up. I get emails and Facebook messages and tweets and all sorts of commentary anytime I play it, even in the comments section on YouTube. People appreciate it, and that's why I continue to do it. I'm trying to roust the sleeping giant that is all of you. Once we evolve, ladies and gentlemen, we can move on to cooler things like exploring the oceans and stuff and outer space, but we have to get rid of these scumbags first, and we have to change the way we think towards each other as humans. Think about that. I'll see you all again tomorrow night, live at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
This is Sparta!
Until then, ladies and gentlemen, do not buy into the fear porn that is pumped out on your television set. Believe in yourself. Believe in the people you love and those around you. The solutions to our problems are an inside job. I love you all. I'm out of here.